Hi, I'm Colleen Dully. I'm an associate editor at America Magazine, and I am a proud member, like Carlos, of the Ignatian Solidarity Network Board of Directors. Thanks. I am honored tonight to present one of the 2023 Robert M. Holstein Faith Doing Justice Awards to Ellie Hidalgo. The Holstein Award honors lifelong leaders for social justice grounded in the spirituality of St. Ignatius of Loyola. The award's namesake, the late Robert M. Holstein, was a former California province Jesuit. He was a labor lawyer, a justice advocate, and a founder of the Ignatian Family Teaching for Justice, which was the precursor to the Ignatian Solidarity Network. Ellie Hidalgo is the co-director of Discerning Deacons, which is a project that engages Catholics in the active discernment. Oh, sorry. Pause for applause. Discerning Deacons. You can tell I do a podcast. Don't usually do this. Ellie is a co-director of Discerning Deacons, which is a project that encourages Catholics in the active discernment of our church about women and the diaconate. Discerning Deacons is deeply engaged in the global synod process, helping to animate over 350 sessions that reach 9,000 people in the listening phase. And Ellie is committed to serving this bold, prophetic vision of a synodal church that walks together as the people of God in our faith-filled struggles for justice, dignity, and peace. Prior to her time with Discerning Deacons, Ellie spent 12 years in parish ministry at Dolores Mission, a Jesuit parish in the Mexican and Central American immigrant community of East Los Angeles, where she served as a pastoral associate. This small church with a giant heart, as you just saw in the video, is known for its advocacy of immigrants, restorative justice ministries, and faith-based community organizing, and for being the home parish of Homeboy Industries. Ellie was commissioned as a pastoral associate for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. She has preached for Catholic Women Preach, and she has helped to facilitate national prayer services to commemorate St. Phoebe, one of the early church's female deacons. Yeah. Previously, Ellie served as a staff writer for The Tidings Catholic newspaper, writing news and feature stories about Hispanic ministry, restorative justice, youth ministry, and immigration reform. Her articles frequently appeared in Catholic News Service. She holds degrees from Loyola Marymount University and the University of Pennsylvania. Ellie is the first of 5 children born to Cuban parents and a proud aunt to 8 nieces and nephews and numerous godchildren. She returned to Miami, Florida in 2020 to live closer to family. Welcome, Ellie.
Thank you, Colleen, for that wonderful introduction. And many thanks to Chris Kerr and Kelly Swan and all the team at Ignatian Solidarity Network for lifting up the work of Discerning Deacons the moment we began, and in part by inviting me and giving other diaconal women the opportunity to reflect on the Holy Scriptures in visible and meaningful ways through their wonderful series, the Rise Up series as well as the Lenten series. And I also just want to thank Loretta Holstein, whom I've known for my years in Los Angeles, very honored to receive this award. And also Father Ted Gabrielli, former pastor of Dolores Mission, who first introduced me to the work of Ignatian Solidarity Network. I want to thank my brilliant and beautiful co-director, Casey Stanton, with whom I am deeply privileged to work and dream and design as we've collaborated on this effort of Discerning Deacons. And there are lots of Discerning Deacons in this room, so I just want to thank all of you, including my colleague. A thank you to B.A. Donnelly of Catholic Women Preach, who's opened up the imagination of women preaching. And a thank you to Phyllis Lagano, who was here earlier, for her many decades of expert scholarship that has informed our work. And a shout out to family and friends who are here, including my sister Rosy Hidalgo and my cousin Laura Ham Amigon for being here tonight. I'm profoundly grateful to the women of Dolores Mission in East Los Angeles, where during my 12 years of parish ministry taught me the joy of encountering God's beloved community when we stand at the peripheries and reach out to talk to a teen who's at risk for joining a gang, or cook dinner for the homeless, or welcome new immigrant families into the neighborhood, or hold sacred spaces for parents whose children have died of violence, or parents whose children are incarcerated. Father Greg Boyle, former pastor of Dolores Mission, who founded Homeboy Industries, likes to point to a meditation by St. Ignatius in which he says, "See Jesus standing in the lowly place." Because it's in the lowly place where we encounter a God who is much greater, más allá, than our often too tiny image of God. Dolores Mission is a glimpse of what's possible when clergy and laity, women and men, walk shoulder to shoulder to respond to the needs of a neighborhood and in the process impact a country. But for all Catholic women to be more fully affirmed in their giftedness, in their families, in their communities, and even in their home parishes, takes courageous conversations. In my own Cuban-American family, we've been learning how to engage in these courageous conversations. I'm going to share with you a story. After my niece Carolina was confirmed as a teenager, she begged her parents not to obligate her to keep going to Mass. You see, my niece found it increasingly painful and unbearable to walk into a church where preaching was only proclaimed by men. As good as these priests were, good and holy men, it was upsetting to my niece to never hear the gospel proclaimed from the perspective of a woman. No Mary Magdalenes and no Phoebes allowed to share the good news. I can't find God in a church when I'm feeling so angry and rejected, Carolina told her mother. They haven't set up a space to welcome me the way I believe God would welcome me. My sister and her husband were faced with having to rethink Sundays. And this is what they came up with. Carolina would choose a spiritual book that interested her to keep nurturing her soul on Sundays, which was important to her parents. And on the way to Mass, they would drop her off at Starbucks. Who knew you could encounter God at Starbucks? A Holy Spirit workaround for sure. But something stuck. Today, Carolina is a college senior and loves her internship of cooking dinners with community members and formerly incarcerated people to engage in lively conversations together about how to help people transition from prison to civilian life. My niece is finding joy standing in the lowly place and building community that is more inclusive and welcoming, much like what Jesus did. Catholic women play a vital role in handing off the faith to the next generation. But when 99% of Catholic churches will have a male preacher this Sunday, in a world where 50% of the Catholic population are women, it's time for our daughters, granddaughters, nieces, our sons, our grandsons, to see us naming aloud a problem we've endured quietly in our hearts. Because what seemed normalized to my devout Cuban Catholic grandmothers and became uncomfortable for my mother and has become unacceptable for me is unbearable for my nieces and for many of our daughters. And this will have untold consequences for Catholic ministries. The chasm has been growing between the institutional church and young people, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. Young people hunger for holiness. They hunger to know that God walks alongside their passionate commitment to make the world a better place. They hunger to see the church engaging in courageous conversations so that we can move forward together into the future. This is the hope of the global synod listening process. Discerning Deacons is helping to animate this very synod listening process within our families, within our parishes, within our dioceses, listening at the peripheries, including women who inhabit a prophetic edge, but who hunger to contribute to the central conversation. We are building capacities for listening, dialoguing, discerning the will of the Holy Spirit, and building consensus about how God is calling us to be church in the third millennium. Rethinking women's participation has emerged as a critical and urgent concern around the Catholic world, as Pope Francis encourages the faithful to notice the workings of the Holy Spirit in this creative tension. I want to thank Ignatian Solidarity Network for its commitment to ignite and kindle the deep desires inside of our young people for justice, solidarity, and integral living that cares for our common home, for discovering God anew in the lowly places. I'll close by sharing the words of Pope Francis when our Discerning Deacons delegation traveled to Rome for the opening Synod Mass in 2021, joined by women in ministry from the Amazon region of Latin America. We presented the Holy Father with an image of St. Phoebe, named diakonos by St. Paul during the early days of Christianity. And as we talked with the Pope about the ministry of women in the Americas, the Pope's words to us were firme adelante. Go forth steadfastly. And I share those words with you, all of you tonight. Firme adelante. Thank you.